Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I would really appreciate it, and I promise to update daily. Today, we have a bit of a no comparison test, at least at face value. The Sinn, of course, the 9/10 anniversary split second, up against the Rolex Oyster Perpetual Cosmograph Daytona. Such a disparity in origin, history, specifications, and price. How can we possibly run these up against each other? Well, they're close in size. They're both 100 meters water resistant. They're both automatic, full bracelet, stainless steel, no-date chronographs. Maybe this is a battle after all. Let's talk about the veteran in the space and start with the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. This was my original watch crush. I was into racing and automobiles before I was into watches, and one does seem to follow from the other. They tend to be coincident preoccupations for guys, but the Daytona was the timepiece that captured my heart after the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona captured exactly 24 hours of my calendar year. That was back in the year 2000, and I still have a love for the Cosmograph Daytona. Still 40 millimeters. This is the same model that was released in 2000. The first of the in-house caliber Daytonas. It's reference 116520, and you can see this is the discontinued model that went out of production after 2016. So our two watches here, both discontinued, both timepieces that could have been purchased from their respective manufacturers in 2016. It's a slim watch, only 12.2 millimeters thick, and lug to lug it has a wonderful size. On my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, it's only 47.8 lug to lug, which means it is a easy watch to put on your wrist, wear across your wrist, and then strap onto a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. If you include the end links, you actually find the watch is exactly 50 millimeters across the wrist, 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. It's an easy one to wear, and it's your choice in this test if you have a smaller wrist. The bracelet is an Oyster 3-link, and as you can see, it's an upscale Rolex reference. The real change of 2016 wasn't the bracelet, the movement, it wasn't the dials, it wasn't the case, it was the bezel, which became ceramic. Other than that, no change. The watch effectively still available today. The bracelet is nicely executed, and as you can see, Rolex studied in its design, always acknowledging ergonomics with gaps to vent the wrist, avoid pinching skin or pulling hair. The clasp of the Rolex is more impressive than on the Sinn. Blasted internally with a combination of polish and media blasting, you can see it uses a beacon hook system, so it locks once, and then you lock it again with the clamshell. When you open it up, you can see there is some adjustability in here. You've got Easylink, the 5 millimeter adjustment, but you also have a couple of stationing detents inside. You can see there are little divots drilled that allow you to change the anchoring point of the bracelet inside the clasp. So you can really fine-tune this one between Easylink, removable links, and of course that fine-tuning inside the clasp. This is the old lacquered tack, so metal, and as you can see, the wells for all of the characters on the bezel are filled with lacquer. Units per hour, so your choice, a standing mile or a standing kilometer. You can use that tack in conjunction with the chronograph to gauge the speed of a car over a standing kilometer or mile on Daytona Beach. Remember, before there was NASCAR on the super speedway, before there was the 24 Hours of Daytona, runs were made in the standing mile out on the beach of Daytona, and that was the origin of motorsports in Daytona Beach back in the 50s and 40s. Now, getting close to the dial, you can see that the crowns are screw down, and everything is screw down, pushers and crown, triplock crown, 100 meters water resistant, solid case back, not much to see there. Graceful case. You can see it's always been a bit more fluid than the other Rolex sports watches. This is the inheritance of a previous generation of Rolex watch. It's more like a Datejust or a Date-8 in profile than a Submariner, a Sea Dweller, or an Explorer 2. White dial, and it is truly white, not silver, with a matte finish, red Daytona. You can see there's concentric circular texture that is stamped into the sub-registers, and you can see they are lacquered with their characters in black. The centers are raised, which gives the dial a fun 3D effect. All the indices, the hands, as well as the Rolex crown, white gold. No date, beautifully balanced. You know you're looking at the in-house caliber when the 60-second constant register is down at 6 as opposed to 9. When it's at 9, that's the El Primero. Inside, that Rolex in-house caliber used back in 2000 for the first time, still available today. 4130, 44 joules, 72-hour power reserve, bidirectional winding, stop seconds, full bridge, free sprung, overcoil hairspring, COSC certified, column wheel chronograph with a vertical clutch. That's a lot of tech and a lot of spec for a watch that you can wear on a very compact wrist. Now let's jump over to the Sinn. This is a watch that was launched for 2016, a one-year model. It celebrated 55 years of Sinn. Sinn of Frankfurt, originally founded by its namesake, Helmut Sinn, who created an aviator's watch and a series of aviator's watches under his own name. He was a former Luftwaffe pilot and race car driver in his own right from the 1950s, but it's only relatively recently that watches in this style have been available from the company. The timepiece somewhere between a sports watch and a dress watch, which puts it in good company, shoulder to shoulder with the Daytona. It is larger, 41.5 millimeters. This 300-piece limited edition, the 55th anniversary watch from 2016, is a big timepiece. It's thicker. You can see 15.6 millimeters thick, and across the wrist it has quite a wingspan, aviator's pun unfortunately, but 48 millimeters if you include just the case, a more robust measurement if you include the end links of the bracelet at 55.2 millimeters. 22 millimeters is the spacing between the lugs, so while it does have a bit of a vintage sports chronograph appearance to it, the dimensions as well as the proportions, the lug spacing, and the bracelet, very much of our era. This is a watch that wears large. Though only 1.5 millimeters larger than the Daytona nominally, it is a more substantial piece, and it has superior wrist presence in that regard. The bracelet, however, is downright dressy compared to the Daytona. You can see slash cut with a flared V pattern. You have differential alignment, differential link size, differential finish with both polish and satin. On the underside, you can easily see how this one's never going to pinch skin, pull hair, or trap wrist heat. Check out the spec on this Sinn bracelet. Sinn makes all of its parts. They have their own case, bracelet, and clasp manufacturer called SUG that makes all these parts. Hex screws used, proper hardware for a sports watch. Of course, there is a double deployant clasp, trigger actuated, so a bit more convenient perhaps than the Daytona, but probably not as secure at the limit. It's a handsome piece and lower in profile, so less likely to scratch and disfigure. Jump into the case, you can see it's nothing like the Daytona's caseband. Although it does have some grace in the integration of the lugs with the caseband and the slender taper of the lugs themselves, it's a chunky watch. And you can see the pushers, which include the rattrapant trigger, are stepped out from the case. The crown, which appears to be threaded out, is in fact simply at a permanent distance from the caseband. So I could start pulling it out and get my fingers dug underneath it with ease. And the chronograph pushers, although the watch is also 100 meters water resistant, the chronograph pushers themselves are not screw down, so it's a bit easier to access them here. And you can see that the bezel is very minimal. From head on, it almost disappears. Split second chronograph, a fun trigger operation, and you can see it inherits the cream colored dial from the Sinn driver's watch series. There is a Rayhot outboard featuring a tachymeter that allows you to measure anything ranging from 30 kilometers per hour to very, very high speeds indeed. So there's more of a range to this tack than what you'll get on the Rolex. You can see it is a split-second chronograph, not rattrapant, but Schleppzeiger, and of course the timepiece featuring that creamy lacquered dial finish also has blackened applied indices. You can see those appliques have a three-dimensional effect, with the slope of the Rayhot really gives this dial some depth. You'll note that there are double sunken sub-registers for constant seconds and chronograph minutes, and they feature handsome polished chapter rings. You can also note that there are hybrid style hands, a hybrid between syringe and baton style with an applique Sinn logo. Turn it all over and you can see this is anything but a box stock Valjoux 7750. Although it is based on the bones of the 7750, let's see how close we can get here. This is actually a highly modified 7750 made in-house, lock, stock, and barrel by La Joux, the people behind Arnold & Son. So this is high horology in its own right. Arnold & Son is no joke. It is a 7750, but note that it features a column wheel mechanism, a 7753 to be exact, that has been adapted from the cam system to the column wheel, and spoiler alert, between these two column wheel chronographs, this one has by far the better feel. It also has the only movement you can see, as the case back is open with a broad sapphire that lets you appreciate this large chronograph caliber, which, based on the configuration of the hairspring and the balance, is either chronometer spec balance or top, the two highest grades that you can order. It does feature stop seconds, so you have the ability to hack the watch just as you do with the Daytona. Again, both 100 meters water resistant, so for the ease of actuating all of these chronograph controls without screw downs, you pay no price. Okay, let's talk about the advantages of these watches. Jumping right into the Sinn. This is a timepiece that is a little bit of an underdog, no doubt, but it has a split-second chronograph that the Daytona does not. It also features A display case back, which the Daytona does not. If you like to see that for which you've paid, this is probably the only choice between the two. I'm also going to shout out the fact that this is a 300-piece limited edition, and there are literally tens of thousands of those Daytonas, if not hundreds of thousands, made since the year 2000. This is a very special watch, a brand you rarely see and a model you rarely see from that brand, so it has a double scarcity factor. Also consider value, new or used. This watch new, and it is still available new. Some examples still on the market. Sinn still catalogs the watch on its site, but you would pay $5,980 US to buy this watch new. Pre-owned, it gains a little bit. They sell for about $6,000 to $6,500. So you're really not going to put your investment at risk if you go into this Sinn 910 anniversary. I'll also shout out the fact that this watch has greater dial detail. It's not busy by any means. What's there is luxurious. It seems surplus to the needs of a retro tribute watch, and it's not a tribute to any specific reference, so it's not a plagiarized design, but you have that creamy dial, the polished chapterings, the blackened applique indices, those graceful extended hybrid syringe-style hands, the splashes of red, the double concentric scales of the tachymeter, cream outboard, and metallic satin finish inboard, with the dished profile sloping down to the dial base and the symmetry of the two-register design. Gorgeous. Dial detail goes to the Sinn, and that's important because design is ultimately what wins our hearts, even if we try to rationalize these as choices we make on the basis of spec and engineering. That's never been the case. This is a timepiece that gives you 100-meter water resistance with no screw-down crowns, so the chronograph is always accessible for use. The Daytona, not so much. I'll also mention that this watch is more strap viable, as there's nothing about the design that feels absolutely essential. You don't have to have the bracelet and the case as one. This is not a Royal Oak, this is not a Nautilus Jumbo, and it's not a modern Rolex sports watch on a factory bracelet. This wouldn't look quite right on an aftermarket strap. This would. And to hammer home the point, Sinn ships a spare strap and deployant clasp with this watch. You get the spare strap, you get the deployant clasp, you get spare spring bars, and you even get tools to install it. So on both an aesthetic basis and a value basis, this is the one to get and wear with a strap. All to recommend the timepiece. Finally, this is a timepiece that for many folks will be an alternative to a standard Swiss watch. Everyone in your office has a Rolex, even if everyone in your office doesn't have a Daytona. And if it's not a Rolex, I guarantee it's Swiss. Let them know the German watches in the luxury space are a thing. Be the evangelist. Now, the Daytona. As I mentioned, I fell in love with this watch back in 2000 while watching the 24 Hours of Daytona. That was the year the Dodge Viper GTSR won overall. That was my favorite car in the race, and this watch I will always associate with that grand memory. The heritage of this timepiece, not just at Daytona but at tracks around the world, is real. It's not just something astroturfed by Rolex advertising. This is the watch that race car drivers and race winners actually choose. Even when they don't win it, they buy it for themselves. It's a watch that I love. It stood the test of time, as this timepiece is recognizable as the first Daytona that launched back in 1963. In 2063, this will still be recognizable as a Rolex Daytona. Let's talk about tech. 3-day power reserve versus 44 hours. Vertical clutch and a column wheel. One and the other. This is a watch that features a full balance bridge and a free-sprung index for shock protection, an anti-magnetic parachrom hairspring with an overcoil architecture, so it keeps excellent time in any orientation with respect to gravity, and it is a COSC certified Swiss chronometer. So this watch has the tech and the spec, while the Sinn is upgraded substantially over the standard 7753. Nevertheless, the Rolex is on a different level tech-wise, and of course Rolex executing that movement entirely in their own house. Let's talk about dial loom. This watch has it, the Sinn doesn't. For many folks, especially those who are inclined to follow 24-hour events around the world at racetracks, the loom is a big deal. It makes the watch more practical. It's slimmer and more elegant. Let's do crystal to crystal, and you can easily see the difference between 12.2 and 15.6 millimeters. No contest. I'll also mention that if you have a smaller wrist, this isn't just more elegant, it might be the only choice if your wrist is 14 centimeters circumference or smaller. And finally, inside the clasp, which is both more secure with its clamshell and its beacon hook system both, but it also has the Easylink quick adjustment system as well as those stationing points, so you have quite a bit of adjustability as well as greater security with that strap. So which of these do I choose for myself? Is it the old hero, or is it perhaps the new flame? Between the two, I have to say I love both of them, and in a perfect world, the answer is 1 and 2. But for me, the answer is going to be 1 and 2 in that order. The Sinn is the one that I pick. I love the fact that it's an underdog that requires no compromise, that it's built with integrity, beautifully made. The tech and the spec is impressive enough, and you get to see the movement itself. This is a timepiece that appeals to me emotionally. Both of these will serve the cravings of a motorsports fan who also loves watches. Neither one of these is a bad watch by any means, and on a different day I might change my mind. But today, the champion from Frankfurt takes home the trophy. Not the 24 hours of Daytona. We're going to have to call this one the victor in the 24 hours of the Nürburgring. Let me know which one is your champion in the comment boxes below.